What is up YouTube, and welcome to this His Dark Materials episode 2 breakdown. Now there will be spoilers in this video, so please do be warned, and anyway, on to the video. We pick up after last week where Will and Lyra are going to Will's world. However, there's one thing missing. Well, the big cliffhanger of last week was that Will was seemingly attacked by a spectre, and no, there was no resolution from that as they head off. However, Will is very much close to adulthood, and spectres only drain adults. But let's forget all about that because, well, they have. Lyra is almost instantly hit by a car as she mentions cars don't go that fast in her world, which is pretty cool. All of the worlds, the millions of worlds, are so different, as this is basically our world, and, well, it's pretty boring, and seeing her adjust was pretty interesting, but it's a world away from her world with polar bears and all the cool kinds of things that happen. But yes, this is just bog standard Oxford. Now, Charles Lotteram is following them as we know he has been traversing both worlds, and in the books he is after the subtle knife, able to cut between worlds, which this season is based on. They head to Jordan College, but of course Jordan College isn't here. But meanwhile at the Magisterium, there is a funeral held for Cardinal Sturrock, who was of course killed by a witch. But this is used as an excuse to hold the witches to account and really escalate the rhetoric around them, leading towards a very, very big religious war I expect that is coming and will really come to a head later in the season. Hugh MacPhail is now the acting cardinal, and like I said, he goes on a tirade and says that travelling between worlds is wrong and the witches are heretics. Yes, he is really being nasty here, really hammering home that religious kind of persecution. Will then hilariously has to explain what a mobile phone is to Lyra as it pings us. Well, of course, you can't get 4G in the other worlds. I expect he'd even have 3G. She explains that she also has something similar, but, well, hers is a bit better. It is an alethiometer, and she knows, well, that he is a murderer. A bit harsh here as the guy fell over the cat, and, well, the dude was a nasty individual, so really, I think she should cut Will some slack here, but he doesn't really give the context there. Now, Will becomes angry as he cuts her off, and he says that he is going to go and see his mother, and they plan to meet at the Botanical Gardens at 5 PM, which is what we see at the end of the episode. She goes off and she has her alethiometer, which tells her to head towards St. Peter's, where a scholar can tell her about dust, which is of course what she does. She goes to a museum and sees Charles, but she goes under a pseudonym of Lizzie, but he of course knows who she is as they talk about trepan skulls, an action that was done by medical practitioners to treat anything from migraines to epilepsy, but of course it didn't really work. And, well, he sees her use the alethiometer, which is going to be important later on, as this really has got the plot of the second book there, The Subtle Knife. I won't go into too much of spoilers there, but Will goes home and finds his boxing teacher getting friendly with his mother, cheeky little scamp there, which is pretty interesting. But Serafina then speaks to Ruta. She is really, really angry that she killed Sturrock, and it's really set their cause back heavily. But Ruta says that Sturrock was an awful man, and she was only protecting the prophecy. But Serafina has no idea that the man she sent to clear up the mess is going to get arrested and sent for hard labour. Yes, it just gets worse for these poor old witches, and I think the look of the witches is so very, very cool. It reminds me of that game Hellblade and things like that. But Coulter then speaks to Charles just before the witch's envoy arrives and asks her about her daughter. But she has no idea what he's up to, and he just says business as he's up to his own scheme trying to get the subtle knife and use different things with dust. And, well, that's going to be an interesting combination of that plot, and it's really the most interesting part, in my opinion, of the actual episode. Now, Lancelius arrives only to be sent down, which would seal the fate of the witches, as we saw at the end of the episode, and things such as going between worlds and witches' practices are heresy, and they really want to kind of hammer home the whole thing that we had last season where they want to have people who are just good husks of people, so there is no sin. And Dust is, of course, referred to as the original sin. Now, Will meets his lawyer and he tries to get out his trust fund, but he cannot, but he's told of his grandparents. And the episode and season so far just seems very slow, and I feel there could be a bit more action as it just seems all world building so far. Will sees his grandparents, which is a detour, which seems to only exist to show that Will is in danger and on the run, but it is very, very dull. The most important story of the episode is Lyra, as she meets the scholar Mary and explains that dust exists in her world. And, well, while skeptical, Mary then explains that dust could be known as shadow particles, and she actually has a machine called the Cave to see how they interact. And yes, they do interact with man-made objects. However, they also interact the most when a person is used in this machine, and Mary does seem a bit guarded. However, we do have Lyra kind of say things that only, well, not really anyone will know about Mary, and she trusts her in the end. Now, Lyra then goes into the machine, and she creates just crazy stuff with the dust as it interacts with her. And, well, she runs off before Mary can actually find out what any of this actually means. But her machine does need funding, and it sort of has been approved, which is interesting, and that's a plot thread that will move on later. And we will see more of Mary and the Cave machine, which I'm very excited to see, as the dust thing and the travelling world is going to open up even more. But Will meets Lyra at the bench at the Botanical Gardens, and it is a big part of the book, so they agree to meet regularly, as later on in the story they cannot be together. It even exists in real life and is a big tourist attraction for fans. Lyra explains that his father is still alive, and boy can I not wait for some more Hot Priest. Moriarty. No, Andrew Scott. I can't wait for more Andrew Scott action to appear, as that is the actor's name. And Will now has more hope. However, Lyra's mother now knows that Lyra followed her father through the void as she speaks to a prisoner, and now knows where to go next, as her aim is to get her back, and it brings her into conflict with Charles. And she tells the Cardinal all of this, that she has her own plans, and really the folly of him is just nothing in the grander scheme of these multi-different million worlds that the Cardinal doesn't want anyone to visit. Now, boy, did this episode get good right at the end with plot after plot, except it just wasn't that exciting until the end. But I now feel that the story has finally started, so I'm excited to see where this goes next. And if you want me to cover this show more, please do let me know, because I'm kind of new to the show. I've just caught up with it and I enjoyed it. It's a fun jaunt, and there's not that much on TV, so let me know if you want more of it. Please do like, please do subscribe, and I'll see you soon, and goodbye.